Why you chose this workshop? Why this cross-sectorial cooperation is important for you today?
That's because it's the biggest problem in my municipality.
Yeah, because
I guess it's everywhere. Also, we heard upstairs in the conference, you know, the education minister comes here and tells about the education system, not about youth work. It's kind of, come on, you know where you came.
it's a good point. I will come back to that because sometimes we expect when we cooperate with others that others understand our field and they use our terminology. Is it their problem or our problem? We will check. What else? Why are you here? Yeah, I heard that it's a problem, it's an issue. It's not so easy to cooperate. And also, as I said in the plenary, each EU document is calling for cross-sectoral cooperation. Nobody is telling how to do it, yes? So yeah, maybe let's find out what it's all about. Any other motivations to be here?
Your fantastic personality, of course.
Yes, but also very humble. Anything else? Or maybe, you know, some specific questions with which you already come here? Because if not, I will go with my plan.
So for me, at least, it's very important to know how to manage that. Not because we know why it's necessary, but we don't know how, I think. And not us, but also in the municipality don't know how to do that.
Or actually, who has to start it?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest problem. Because if we, I mean, in Lithuanian, we call it with Sadarbība, we say bendradarbiavimas. It's kind of positive word, working with others. But if you say it like 5 times, Sadarbība, Sadarbība, or bendradarbiavimas, just it already gives you a headache. Because it's not so easy. Yes, it's a positive, but it's a process in itself, and it's quite often quite long process to get to this cooperation. Why I talk about cooperation is because it was one of our choices to work on cross-sectoral cooperation, because nobody is doing it, so it's kind of the area of work which we wanted to fill. And we did, in 2011, we were commissioned by Youth Affairs Department in Lithuania to do research or analysis of cross-sectorial cooperation in the youth policy field on the national level in Lithuania. That was the full title. That's how complicated it can get, because when you talk about cooperation, you also need to kind of clarify on which topic, on which level. So it's not everyone with everyone about everything. But then again, it cannot really happen. So we have to be quite clear. And in that research, we also understood that we need to define what is cross-sectoral cooperation, because there are different terms used, and sometimes cross-sectoral and cross-institutional is used as synonyms, but then actually it's quite different things. So we use it without clear understanding what it is, why we do it, and how to do it properly. And sometimes when you are in the institution, you are forced to do that. Not necessarily it's your choice, or I would like to do that, and I see that it brings value. You are forced into kind of like here. You're forced to sit in a certain table or group, yeah, where places are available. There are a few questions on which I would like to reflect in this short session. We have around 1 hour. So exactly where to start, how to start, what is this added value? Do we really always know that there is added value in the cooperation, or we just think? And really importance of analyzing different agendas and different motivations, why we cooperate, why we are in these different cooperation settings. Also, we will have a small exercise we will do a shitstorm about how to destroy cooperation. It's not brainstorm, but it's using your negative creativity. Also, when we were preparing for this conference, it was mentioned several times that this administrative reform is a very big challenge, because nobody knows how it will look like after a year or two. Will the focus on youth work remain? And how can you do that? So we were supporting Norway last year, merge on the regional level from 19 counties to 11, and also on municipal level they had to merge. And we were quite proactive there with the counties, with youth centers, with youth affairs specialists to make sure that the good things doesn't disappear. So also I have a small video recorded by my colleague from Vestfold fylkeskommune, which is local authority in Norway. She will also share a few thoughts what has been done and what could be done to use this merging either in a positive way or at least not to lose the good things which we already had. And yeah, so that's the last two questions. So this cross-sectoral cooperation. I think what is very important to tell you, it's possible to do that. And it can work. So it's not something, mystical unicorn or something. It is possible to do it, but also it takes time. It really takes time to develop the willingness to cooperate, to find the ways how we can cooperate in a way which is good for everyone, it suits everyone, and produces added value to everyone. That's, I would say, the most important aspect. If there is one thing you need to remember from this session, look for value for everyone involved. Otherwise, you will be pushing or pulling because then it's only for you it is important and brings added value. Spend time, invest time and energy to get to know not only what other institutions are doing, but why they're doing, how they're doing, and how you can bring a synergy and help each other. I will not go into what Institute is doing, but research is an important aspect. We bring evidences, we bring policy proposals, but we also help to facilitate the processes. It's not enough to bring right people into one room, which is a very important step, actually, to bring people into one room, specialists, young people representatives, ministry representatives, but that's not where things end, that's where they begin. And then it's, so actually I will get back in this slide. So this facilitation aspect is very important. Have somebody who helps, who pushes and pulls, who creates the kind of common ground for everyone to feel important and feel able to contribute. And actually, if I might forget it in the session, so I will say it immediately. Why, for institutions in the cross-sectoral cooperation groups or working groups or committees, it's good to have external person to facilitate, because that person doesn't have direct connection to one of the institutions, so it can look a bit broader, not to defend one or another, but also other institutions looks at this cooperation as a bit more open and where they can have ownership. But another thing, it comes really from our practice in Baltic region, if one institution is running the stuff, usually they feel responsible to provide and prepare the setting, but then they cannot participate themselves because they have to run the show. So actually having somebody from outside can really, really help both institution who is responsible for it, but also for those who are involved. So that comes from practice. Another thing on which we base the need for cross-sectoral cooperation, and it came from there and researching young people, where they participate, how they participate, why they participate, and how they feel participating or being involved in something. And we understood that it's not only responsibility of youth affairs specialist or youth worker to involve young people and listen to them, but it's the responsibility of all different kinds of institutions. Why? Because if you participate somewhere, it can be school council, it can be youth center, it can be, I don't know, some civic discussion and debate. If you feel that your opinion is heard, if you feel that you are respected, it's very likely that you participate again, and maybe even somewhere else. And that's what we really see in the youth organizations. Those guys who are active in youth organizations, usually they do quite okay in school. They are also singing, dancing, and doing sports. So it's, if they feel empowered, they participate everywhere. And those who don't participate, usually they don't participate anywhere. And why they don't participate? Sometimes it's because they were not asked, they were not invited. Sometimes it's because nobody supported and motivated them at home or in their close environment to go and participate. But also very often they had a negative experience of participation. I came to municipality, they said, come next year. I came and I tried to tell to school, at school that, you know, the way how I teach, I would like to do it differently. I was kicked out. And then you think that it's not that your opinion is not important in that sector, but you feel that adults don't respect me, they don't want to hear about me, and you feel rejected. So that's why it's important for different institutions to take youth participation quite seriously. And I think it could be quite good entry point for you. Are you coming from NGO, from municipality, or from anywhere, to show to others that everyone affects how young people are participating. If librarian shouts on young people because they make too much noise or they leave dirt in library, very often it also results that they will not go to library, but they also will not go somewhere else. If the fizrukas, the guy who is doing sports, disrespects you, you also take it much deeper than only in this physical training sector. So it's quite important, and again, you could reflect in your own environment who is doing what, who is connected to young people, and how you can make them more youth-friendly. Because it's not enough to strengthen youth organizations, youth centers, and youth affairs specialists to have a positive effect on youth policy and youth participation. The whole setting has to change. Everyone has to become a bit more youth-friendly. I already mentioned upstairs, that I was consulting 7 mayors from Salonia region, and they asked, so what can we do? I said, you start talking that youth is important, and the municipality is youth-friendly. So you show that political willingness from that side. Another thing is to provide opportunities for youth workers, for youth affairs specialists, or for whoever who wants to work with young people or works with young people to get training. There are some state trainings. We heard about quality, I'm not going into that, but also there's a lot of international cooperation happening. And very often those who are working with young people, they're not allowed to go. Say, it's a waste of time, or it's a tourism, And I mean, we heard so many stories from Lithuania, from Latvia, or one of the Lithuanian youth affairs coordinators, we wanted to bring him on a study visit to Italy, and he said, I will not go because, again, everyone will be bitching about me in the municipality, that it's already not a serious work to work with youngsters. And then going to Italy, of course, tourist. Even if it's really thematic based on sharing practices, on getting competencies. So that aspect is very, very important. And also I said, you as a mayor, or it doesn't matter from where initiative comes, if you ask all workers of municipality to do one thing a bit more youth-friendly, that would bring a big change. Because it's not coming from one person, but actually it affects the whole setting. So that slide is quite important. And we also have one handbook in English. It's about cross-sectoral cooperation, but we no need to write or read a lot about cross-sectoral cooperation. The biggest aspect is how to do it, yes? So we also have practices from different countries, and we have a bunch of methods how to start cooperation, how to learn with different agendas of institutions, and so on. So there are already tools and materials which can be taken and used quite easily. So talking again about the cross-sectoral cooperation, it's important that it's complementary cooperation. Complementary means that you cooperate and it brings something new. It includes representatives from different sectors. And there are 2 aspects here, because we can talk about cross-sectoral cooperation where we involve business sector, public sector, and NGO sector, and how we can bring those 3 sectors together. But for us, what is most important is how to bring really different institutions, different public bodies, working in different policy areas, but so that we understand young people better and that we can help each other better. Yep. So it's defined, it's coordinated, and it also helps to reach all our aims easier. Did we choose to cooperate with employment sector 10 years ago? When EU strategy was drawn based on big unemployment numbers, the whole Erasmus Plus program still, even in 2020, we're still trying to build competencies which are needed for labor market. We need to motivate young people to get into employment or become self-employed, because that was situation, that was priority. And then youth work and youth organizations had to reinvent themselves to say, okay, so how do we fit into this framework so that we can continue our work? With 2015, with bombings in Paris, in Brussels, again, this youth radicalization became an issue, and youth work and youth organizations had to reinvent themselves. So how do we prevent young people from radicalization? Even though we still continue doing our day-to-day youth work, organize, motivate, help them to become more self-sustainable, and so on, but a different framework around you in which you have to fit, which shows that we have this ability to adapt, because we're forced. We cannot choose not to do it, so we have to do it because the funding comes through different programs and projects. But also, I hope that it, at least in some of us, it develops this capacity to look broader and approach with different institutions, different organizations, different policy areas, even before we're forced to do that. Because we know how to do it, we know how to start, we know how to build this cooperation with different institutions. So now you get the first task. I don't know if you have something to write on. If you have it, it would help. Think about 5 ways how to destroy cooperation or existing partnership, and write it down. Turn on your creativity. When we work with youngsters, we ask them how to fuck up cooperation. With you, I have to mind my language. And I don't know about you guys, but in Lithuania, we're very good at blaming each other. And when we have some problem, if you find somebody who's guilty for the problem, you consider the problem solved, which is not really the case. I see that you can continue and continue. Can you share a couple of ideas how to destroy existing partnership? Anyone?
Maybe starting to ignore them.
Ignoring others. Mm-hmm.
Make promises and break them with consistency.
Consistently break promises. Usually, it's enough to break it once.
Yeah.
But if you do it consistently, then it's a choice. More? Pity. Yeah. Help cooperating with others from kind of based on pity.
Not
No.
to break. Sorry for English. How can I explain? Sorry, I haven't talked for a long time, so it's hard to find.
You can say in the Latviešu valoda.
If you want to destroy don't want to anymore.
Yeah, when you feel inferior or like superior to others. Okay, come, I will help you. Yeah. So when the partnership is not equal, so it can get annoying from both sides. Okay, so this equality in partnership is important.
Also putting yourself in your needs in the first place and don't care about others.
Very often, we don't really talk about the needs, but we assume that others understand. That's one of the biggest mistakes. I was telling to my wife that, if you want me to read your thoughts, no problem, just write them down. Same here, don't assume, ask, discuss. And what is very interesting, when we talk about different sectors, sometimes we use same words for totally different things. And that can become a problem much later in the cooperation because you were thinking that, everything is kind of fine, we agreed, but not necessary. What else?
Not having the same rights and values.
Having different values already coming into the cooperation, but also having different responsibilities and different rights or space in the cooperation.
Also lying about your knowledge or experience or whatever. Yeah, competencies.
Faking till you make it, no? Yeah, sometimes good assessment. And here we talk about financial resources, here we talk about the time, about infrastructure, about knowledge and competencies. Also, last week we had a Zoom call with the partners in one of the projects. I said, guys, I have to be honest with you. When all this virus, stops, this project is a priority number 17 for me. Like, honestly. So either we do it now somehow online or modified, or when things will resume, I cannot commit to it. So actually also being honest, even though in our countries it looks very brutal. How can you say that? At least, cover it a bit. But I was honest. Anything else? Discrimination. And again, education sector, youth work sector. It can be based on that. It can be based on competencies.
Depends on the teachers, actually. Really a lot with the director and everything. For example, I have really good experience with the school, local school. We already making together some programs. We are making plans together, everything. But I know that it could be totally different to you.
Also, it can be different pay. For example, if any one of you is involved in strategic partnerships and developing intellectual outputs, you know that Norwegian is getting 293 euro per working day, Latvians, Lithuanians, 75. And then they're like, yeah, well, and actually we're producing, pushing and pulling because, yeah. Anything from that table? How to destroy partnership?
Personal relationships, romantic or not romantic.
Good one. True.
Yeah.
Anything? Continue, I like this line. And it's a question, is it how friendly we could and should be? And then, for example, working with British, all of them, after work, they go and have a beer. And we consider it rude because we go and work and have a beer while working because, we have to be more efficient and do stuff. Sometimes being too friendly can be an issue, but also sometimes staying too professional is also said. But then why we cooperate if we don't even like each other? So it's not about sleeping with each other, but actually about this proximity and sharing the values, sharing why we do it, caring about it. About the partnership also, it's very funny how it's perceived in different countries. In Lithuania and Latvia, we very often include it as a kind of quality criteria in the project to have a partner. How easy is to get an institutional partner in Latvia? To sign up for a project. In Lithuania, it's 2 calls max. It's very easy but also it's not understood or meaningful partnership. Say, okay, you need, add us, and then we will check out what happened. So you don't really build this partnership, and that's how you feel. With Norwegians, you have to drink beer for half a year. It's very difficult work to build partnership. But also in that process, you understand what is important for you, what is important for them. Do we really want to work together? Do we create value? Because again, in our region, we usually cooperate to get finances. But if you don't need finances, would you still cooperate with these people? So that's a main question which you have to ask yourself. What kind of added value it brings, and would you cooperate with them even if additional money are not coming with you? So you have to be honest about this partnership, because then sooner or later you would have problems with that. So you see, what are you mentioning? It's not some kind of super tools or how to hack it. No, it's actually investing. It's building trust. It's building understanding. It's not breaking the trust continuously, which is important. I don't know how many of you are giving second chance, but very often, and it's a case for young people, if they're rejecting once, they feel rejected, they don't do it. Sometimes also with partnerships and cooperations, if you were let alone, you would not want to work with that institution again. So, okay, we will not share it among us. We already shared it in a plenary. So why cooperation is needed? Because some of you mentioned we cooperate because we have to. So sometimes it's political reason. And I would say most of our organizations cooperate. Each municipality has these twin sisters, twin brothers, and so on, because it's kind of a nice thing to do. And there's a priority to cooperate. But sometimes it's inevitable. I mean, you have to. For example, again, with unemployment or radicalization, you cannot solve it alone. You have to do it with others. You want it or not, somehow you're stuck with them, and you have to find a way to do it. Sometimes, since you belong to the same institution, and for example, you want it or not, you have to cooperate with the education field because it's under the same umbrella. And if they don't understand you, it's your problem. So actually, you are pushed to be proactive and explain yourself. Sometimes it's done for financial reasons. Again, to get resources, you come into consortium and ask for it. Sometimes it helps to save money, because maybe somebody has people, somebody has infrastructure, meeting place, somebody has something else. So if you look from this perspective, what we can give and also how it can save all of our other costs, that could help. Also, sometimes aims of other organizations are also supporting our aims, and that's why I was also telling before, it's not only important what others are doing and how they're doing, but also why they're doing. Because if somebody is doing prevention, it's one thing. If others doing empowerment and engagement, it's something different, slightly different. And sometimes it's better to work with those who think in the same way, because you don't need in the process to change others. And sometimes it's because of lack of knowledge or experience in one organization, and you can come in and share this experience and practice. Even though, again, in Lithuania at least, where sometimes we can tell to others what we do well, still it's not culturally accepted, because you should not brag about what you do. You know, deeds not words, that's how we're saying, and so, which is bullshit. We have to say what we do, because others might not even think that it exists or it's not possible. So you can show that it works. But also, when we become really secretive about what we fail at, which is actually the first step towards improvement, when you acknowledge what you cannot or where you lack maybe resources or understanding or competence, that's where others could help. So when you go into cooperation, actually it's becoming more vulnerable and more open, because you have to share with others where you're failing, because others could help you. But for that, you really need to be conscious and open up to go into that. Very practical, but not good example of cooperation. Our first project as Institute, which we did in 2011, it was this public procurement. You needed to have a certain competence, but also you had to have a positive account, which means, you know, earning more than losing. And NGOs in general cannot do that. I mean, by definition. So we came with Youth Council, which had competence, and we just were established, and we had €200 in our account because we were just established. So it shows that, you know, it can be mathematical, but also when you see how you can really support each other. For example, with the same National Youth Council, what we agreed that we will take over their international cooperation with youth councils in Eastern Partnership countries, Moldova, Georgia, Ukraine, because we had a competence and capacity. And for them, it was difficult to explain why they would spend time and energy in international cooperation when there's so much to do back home. So actually, you can really use those for yourself. You see the picture we took, it's Mr. Anders from Bergen, Norway. They tried to establish cross-sectorial group of all institutions working in Bergen with youth. And on those different papers, we managed to write down 85 institutions. 85. And if you look deeper, everyone who is doing something, one way or another, is connected to young people. But here, from police and youth centers to different departments to mental health and so on and so forth. And the person, this young guy standing in the middle, kind of tries to show that, I mean, we should always focus around the young person. Why we cooperate? It should contribute to overall youth policy and young person. It has to bring this added value. So sometimes basis for cooperation becomes common policy, as I said, education, yeah, or unemployment or employment. So you kind of forced into this cooperation. But again, it can be also beneficial to you, even if it starts some other way. Sometimes it's territory, and territory is very clear basis, yes? Municipality, and you have to cooperate with maybe police, maybe with child daycare centers or with somebody else, because you are in the same territory. So this one, kind of we understand the best because we're coming from some kind of territories. Now you will be pushed into new kind of territories, so you will also have to fill that territory with new set of bridges, cooperating with each other. And again, you can be proactive. You shouldn't wait while others come to you. Be proactive. Say what's working in your municipality, what's working in your organization. Maybe this good practice of one territory will become good practice of the whole new merged territory. Why not to do that? Sometimes common problems pushes us to cooperate, right? Unemployment, radicalization, all this virus pushes us to cooperate because alone, again, we are all affected by that. We have to do something with it. But there could be different bases. Sometimes it can be, again, common interest, or we like each other, then we look for what we can cooperate about. That's how a lot of youth projects were written, based on a common interest into each other. What kind of forms of cooperation could be? There could be different. For institutions, it's very easy when it's kind of based on agreement. So for example, my municipality signed agreement with this German municipality, so we want it or not, we have to find how to cooperate between young people of these two municipalities. This contract-based cooperation really works in the police sector. If you, and it was a case, Lithuanian Youth Ministry, okay, it's Ministry of Social Security and Labor, signed an agreement with Lithuanian police that they will cooperate on a local level about youth issues. And what happens? Police sends, using their hierarchy, to everyone. So this contract was signed. Next day, guys in the village precinct, they knew that there is this agreement and they have to do something about it. I'm not kind of trying to make anecdote of that, but that's how that system works. So for them, contract-based is perfect. In the youth work field, we often prefer kind of non-formal cooperation. But how does it start? Very often when you meet that person somewhere randomly, you had a coffee in a conference, and then you say, oh, okay, you do this, we do that, so maybe we can work and support each other. So this non-formal or personal cooperation is very important, but then again, we need to provide the spaces where these people could meet. Or that's where this youth worker association is important. Youth affairs specialist organization is important, that they could meet and talk. We need to provide these spaces. You need to provide time to do that, to develop those partnerships. Very interesting experience which we had with Norway. They have formal education, so where you can learn stuff. School, university, and maybe re-education in the labor exchange offices and so on. They don't have trainings as we do, 3-day, 5-day courses, 7-day courses to gain certain competencies, but we have a lot of so-called open arenas or forums. You come to forum, you get maybe panel discussion or 2 inspirational speakers, and that's it. They go and chat, they talk, they discuss, they share among themselves. It really helps to establish this personal approach, personal contacts, but we also adding to what they do, also building competencies, because not everybody comes with a set of competencies which are needed to work with young people, or understand them, or to cooperate. And then when we talk about different sectors, bringing maybe business sector, public sector, and NGO together, it's important that we also bridge with slightly different words. Because you cannot and you should not evaluate other sector by the measures which you use in your own. For example, sometimes people say, yeah, but these youth organizations, they're not efficient. Yes, it's always most efficient to do everything yourself. But if in the youth sector we look at what people learned by being involved in a process, so then you understand that actually initiating projects, writing a project, implementing it with 20 people, it's a mess. It's pain in different places of the body. But actually, 20 different people learned a lot of stuff in the process. So again, you have to understand the different language, the different purposes of these sectors, but also what are different added value which we get from this partnership. And in this case, we had this, I would say, negative experience. It was Lithuanian presidency, 2013, so 7 years ago. We have a first Eastern Partnership Youth Forum, and the topic was recognition of non-formal education. So nice topic. We talked today, formal, non-formal, and formal, you know, it still hurts me a bit. And we invited really bright guys from business sector, investors, innovators, and the guys speaking from the stage, how it's important for us that youngsters who are coming, that they're ready to work. We will teach anything what we need to know before going to our work and so on. And there is this lady from youth sector who's bitching all the time, saying, but this guy, he coming to youth conference, he doesn't even manage to learn a couple of our keywords. Recognition, and you know, something else, like really coming from the youth field. And you think like, okay, we're talking about this big field, employment or employability or economical sector. We talk about this small youth work and the competencies which we are developing. And you expect that we know what we do, why we do, how we do, what added value it brings, and you're bitching about the words he is using. No, it's our problem that they don't understand us, and we need to translate our terminology into what they understand and in what they could see and maybe touch. So our results have to be tangible. So again, don't get offended if other institutions don't understand you. Take it as a challenge, how to find words to communicate what and how you do and what added value you bring. So again, it's a lot about the communication, but it's our task to do that. It's not always easy. Not everybody thinks that working with young people is important because the roads are more important or pensions are more important. So we always have to show what is the added value. And you cannot imagine how many times I was asked, why are you talking about youth participation? Is participation of senior citizens less important than young people? I said, we're not comparing who's more important, but we're talking about sector. We talk about certain amount of young people. It's 25%, 24% of population is young people between 14 and 29. So it's a big group. And they have different needs. They have different challenges, how we can help them. So it's important sector. Types can be different. Let's not go into that. I want to do one more practical task to you. Stand up. Go to somebody who you don't know in this room. Pair up, okay? Make pairs of 2 people. Now, stand up, go. I talked about, you know, cooperation is getting from your comfort zone. Get to know that person and try to find something in common, something what your institutions could do together. Now. So, how can you be useful to each other? That's a question.
Yeah, I was like already volunteering in some area. Who are your target groups, aim groups, or our target group is like located on Latvia, namely youngsters. You know, these things our aim is to show people that like every culture has stereotypes about other cultures. So we try to show them a little bit of different cultures and to break these stereotypes. That's what we do. You're part of some organization.
Guys, I'm rephrasing the question and you have 1 minute to answer it. How can you be useful to each other? Okay, you may sit down now, please. Sit down, sit down. Yeah, as you see, usually it's most difficult to make this first step, and then you cannot stop people. Why we're doing it? Actually, I think most of you would have this similar experience. You meet some random people somewhere, you start talking, and you find so many things in common. But if you didn't start the discussion, you would never learn that. So actually, sometimes you need to force people to talk to each other. And sometimes in the smaller groups, what we do, say, okay, now 10 minutes, talk to everyone, find something you have in common. And then you already have something in common. And then based on that, you can continue discussing. So actually, that's how we try to work, increase the chances of people meeting those who need to meet. And then again, when you have something in common, it's much easier to continue discussions. Was it possible to find ways to be useful to each other? Sometimes it takes longer than 2 minutes and 3 minutes. Especially if you're coming from slightly different sectors, you need to explain a little bit more. And that's why we have these guiding questions. What's your target audience, what you're trying to do, how you work. And then you find sometimes it's really strikingly quick. You find how you can be useful to each other. And I would say, again, in this cross-sectoral cooperation, what is important, focusing not only on what can I get, but actually what can I give, how I can contribute, how I can help others, how I can be useful to others. And in the long run, it's actually much more sustainable, and you get even more in return. Giving and taking is somehow connected. But also, again, don't think only about your own small interests which you want to protect or get, but how you can be good to others. In the long run, what cross-sectoral cooperation helps? So we get from competition to cooperation. Still, there is a lot of competition in our field. We compete for what? Usually we compete for resources and actually for young people. Very often we want to work with those same young people, which are around 20% self-motivated young people, because it's easy with them. You tell them go and sing, they go and sing. You tell them do manifestation, they do manifestation. You tell them organize something, they do and organize something. So it's much more difficult to work with those other 80%. But there is enough young people for everyone to work with. There is not enough people and specialists and organizations. And once in Lithuania, we also had to put it quite radical. There was a tension between institutions on national level and local level. I said, look, guys, I mean, we are too few in this sector. Either we cooperate or at least allow others to do their work. Let's not try to bite into each other's leg. It doesn't help anyone. So we need to move towards cooperation. And actually, the more you cooperate, the more benefits you find in this. So cooperation is better than competition. From individual work, we get into kind of sectoral work, involve different sectors, and then the impact can be bigger. For example, with this process in which we produced 2 books on participation and on cross-sectoral cooperation, we involved social security system in Norway. It's a small system which spends 1/3 of national budget of Norway, which equals to Swedish national budget. 19,000 people working there. So imagine 19,000 people working there. And we managed to change the way how they work. Because we knew that participation is important, but we opened up that participation is not only here, but it can start much earlier, it can finish much later. And this is okay. It's interesting, and what's also maybe different between Lithuanian public sector and Norwegian, that we're looking for ways why we will not be able to do that. They're looking for ways, how can we do that if it was a good idea? And also, they understood, looking at this 360 degrees participation model, that they deal with those who are sick and cannot work, who are migrants and cannot work, those who, dealing with difficult situations. So then do you participate in cultural, political, social life? No, you are struggling with your own case, yeah? So what state institutions do you see? Only the one which is kind of trying to help you to survive and get back to work or somewhere else. So then you understand that if you fail them, they will consider that state failed them. So all of a sudden, oh shit, the responsibility really grew up 10 times, and they developed a participation strategy which was adopted by Parliament half a year later. That's how quickly things can happen, and we talk about quite big institutions and sectors. So actually we can bring our youth policy and youth work approach into much larger systems and structures. Still in Lithuania this year, education system struggles with 1/3 of 12th graders failed math exam. And they take it personal, because that's a failure of school. But said, guys, if you still think that it's the biggest failure, you are the problem, not because, now everyone is dealing with this situation which affected the family life, finances, way of living, the way how you positive or negatively think about the future and so on. If you still care about math so much, maybe we should then scrap out the school at all. Okay, so I forgot that youth policy is under education policy in Latvia. But you also can bring the good things from your sector and make it understandable to others. Again, our data shows that we should not protect young people from doing stupid things. They are good, they want to be successful, so also other systems have to change from preventive work to actually empowering and engaging and supporting these positive youngsters. So you are the ones who can bring that change of narrative as well. So also, we talk not about certain tasks, but about broader impact, which we are trying to get, and as we say in the language, from I to we. Once we counted how many times the president said we, I, in her annual speech, it was a lot. A lot of I, not so a lot we. But also it says a lot how you communicate, how you perceive things. And going a bit into what we did in Norway. In Norway, we knew that, okay, they don't have national youth policy, which is a bit different from Lithuania and Latvia, because policy is what? It's principles, it's directions, it's kind of measures which you have, so in a way, direction. But they have very strong youth work for 40 years, but it's based on municipalities. They have 650 youth centers, but again, they run on a local level according to understanding which I have on the local level. In some cases, beautiful, fantastic. In some cases, not so much. So we said, okay, maybe we need this national level. And we used Erasmus Plus projects, or actually international cooperation, to keep the focus of institution, of administration towards youth and youth topic. And we managed also to bring this focus on youth to make it as a political priority. But also it's interesting, it's not from education sector it came, it didn't come from somewhere else, it came from public health sector, understanding that we need to involve and engage in people. Because they do research every 3 years, and what they understood, they research youngsters between 14 and 16 years of age. So mainly they're in school, and they analyze how they feel, what kind of problems and challenges they have, and so on. And they found out that there is a very clear dependency how you feel in a school. And if you feel connected, if you feel involved and engaged, your mental health is much better. So all of a sudden, youth participation became not a topic of youth policy, but it became public health topic. And then public health is much bigger than youth policy, also financially and institutionally. So they started to work it in a much broader way. So they worked with youth involvement, not only in schools, but minority groups, unemployed youngsters, and so on. So that really helped. And again, using international cooperation, you can bring the focus of your local institution, but also you can bring new practices, new ideas into local level, but also you can make your guys proud about something that's already working. I remember maybe there was a period of 5 years in Latvia when they don't wanted Lithuanians coming and talking about youth policy. It was like, you know, they felt kind of competition. They said, no, we're not really teaching you. We can share something what works in our case, and still with very big limitations. But that's how we can really support each other, but also being proud of what already works in your city, in your town. It can be small things, but again, feel empowered about that. And can I show you that small video from Norway? I hope it will answer some of your questions about merging, because I think we're running out of time little by little. So this is my colleague Tune Helen Jorgensen. She is from public health sector from Vestfold fylkeskommune in Norway. Let's check if I can hear it. She was recording tonight, so.
Labadiena. Thank you for inviting me to quickly share a couple of our experiences from local and regional government reform in Norway, and how it has affected youth work and youth policy development, and how you can keep focus on youth during the merging and after. My name is Tone Jørgensen, and I work in regional government in public health sector south in Norway. And we have newly merged with another county. And my first response to every new country starting the merging process is, I feel really sorry for you. I don't know how long you have been working on it, but in the beginning it is quite chaotic and hectical. Many new decisions need to be made rather quickly, and also new structures needs to be built, sustainable structure, where the goal is to connect and engage all your citizens, because you need all the help you can get finding good solutions to the challenges you are dealing with. And it was important for us who work to strengthen youth voices, especially into local and regional planning, to have different legislations that we could link our work to. So nobody could say that we could not prioritize it. They had to, but to what extent we have to define ourselves. And we took the opportunity in this chaotic beginning to define good participatory processes with young people, together with young people, how to connect all, not only the ones that already was engaged, but also vulnerable groups of young people. And through this kind of work, you can also look at supporting structures, how a youth worker could strengthen the process, or local regional planner, education, or other sections in your local government, because also to find good structure for cross-sectoral cooperation is important. Building that large engagement and ownership through designing solutions together. And in our case, we were so lucky to have an international project called Youth Voices Upgraded, because sometimes it helps bringing people out of the natural habitat in order to see things differently. And our work connecting different kind of sectors to defining good youth work and youth policy in this new structure gave our politicians enough knowledge to make good logic and sustainable decisions bottom up, not top down. And our Norwegian government set the following goals for our reform: to have good and equal services for citizens, comprehensive and coordinated community development, sustainable and financially robust municipalities, and also strengthen local democracy. And we could check all that bullet points through this international project and cooperation. And we also connected different kind of other sectors that maybe not have been working so much with developing youth policy before. But through this work, they saw that, okay, this is also important in order to make good services in our section. So we need to connect. But I wish you all the best of luck with your process. And you are in good hands with Marius that can guide you. So, vikes me.
So thanks, Tuna. So just make it even more simple what she is saying. This merging process is an opportunity to say what is a good practice, because nobody knows. You say you cannot continue working the way you worked because it will be a different setting. So you can define what is a good practice, or you can bring new practices and call them good practices and trying to push them into a system. It's a chance to restart the way how it's done on a local level. It's a chance that you will lose something what's working well. It's a big risk, but also it's an opportunity to maybe bring new modus operandi into your municipalities. In Lithuania, what very, very, very often stops possible cooperation is, what if we fail? O ką jeigu nepavyks? So even in English, it's even more personal. What if we fail? It's more like, what if it fails? In Lithuania, how we say it. But I say, but what if we succeed? What if it works? Why not to give it a try? Because very often we use it as an excuse. No, what if it fails? And that also shows how insecure we are individually and how insecure we are in our systems. Because maybe somebody will come and say, yeah, but why you didn't even think about that? So try. What if it works out? And in most of the cases, it really works out. And it was such a refreshment to work with their public health administration. We could pilot this project in their system, and they said, okay, I know more or less what you are doing and trying to achieve. Try it. You have our full support and financial co-financing. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. We try it. So, but we know but how different from our context it is. But we have to bring this willingness to try, willingness to change. And if we disagree with something, we have to voice it. We have to push. We have to be these agents of change because nobody else would do it. I very often ask people in municipalities saying, if you could name 10 people who can make that, sit back and enjoy. If you cannot, then it's you who has to go and initiate and start doing that. So I hope you are those people whom you were waiting for. Any questions, reactions? Rotten tomatoes.
Thank you very much. That's very inspiring, actually.
Thank you. So yeah, if you have later the questions, reactions, come during a coffee break or write to us. We work a lot with different kind of institutions, local, national, international. We could be maybe useful to some of you.